Yesterday, I had already posted a rather lengthy video where we discussed the 312th event. Check it out if you missed it, as we'll be continuing the topics we touched on in that previous video. And we'll start right away with UFC 312 and the duo that headlined the entire card. Of course, I'm talking about the reigning middleweight champion, Dricus du Plessis, and the former challenger, Sean Strickland, although he is also a former champion. The focus today will be on his coach, Strickland's coach, Nicksick, who sat down with a well-known MMA journalist and gave a pretty blunt interview, expressing his frustration with Strickland. From what he said, it feels like Nicksick might not even want to work with Sean anymore. At least that's the conclusion people are drawing. Just take a look at the comments. Almost everyone is saying the same thing, and I'd even go as far as to say that Nicksick is outright angry at Strickland and deeply disappointed. He repeated the word disappointment multiple times, and it's not just about Sean Strickland himself, but about the entire situation, about how he didn't wake up for the fight, didn't want to wake up, just went with the flow, had no intention of doing anything, and didn't listen to his corner. Nicksick mentioned that Alex Pereira, who was also in Strickland's corner, kept glancing at him, seemingly unable to understand what was going on with Sean at all. Nicksick has serious questions about Strickland's overall motivation, what he really wants from life. He hinted that Sean treats this as nothing more than an easy paycheck. Show up, collect the money, and go home. He doesn't look like someone who is chasing the championship belt. Meanwhile, Nicksick made it clear that he wants to coach champions or those who are determined to become champions. And in his opinion, Strickland no longer fits that description. The coach pointed out that their motivations are simply different, his own as a trainer and Strickland's as a fighter. They don't share the same goal, they want different things in life, and that's a problem for Nicksick. Because if Strickland is only fighting for the money, then apparently their paths are destined to diverge. That's why Nicksick is demanding that his fighter figure out what he really wants in life, set his priorities straight, and communicate them to the Extreme Couture team. He fully agrees with all the criticism that has been directed at their camp, that it was a sluggish fight, a weak fight, a poor performance, especially considering this was a title fight. And Nicksick believes you simply cannot fight like that in championship bouts. On top of that, he reminded everyone that Strickland had promised the fans something entirely different, and his performance did not match those promises at all. In short, the coach made it clear. If Strickland doesn't change his approach and his priorities, then their working relationship is over. Well, let's talk about Dricus du Plessis, who might be facing Khamzat Chimaev soon, and people are already debating who's the favorite and who's the underdog. Some believe Khamzat won't be able to take Dricus down. Cormier has mentioned this. Sean O'Malley's coach Tim Welch also thinks Dricus du Plessis is solid and could hold out for 2 rounds against Khamzat, but by the 3rd, Chimaev could start running into trouble, since du Plessis' endurance might be the deciding factor in a fight like this, according to Welch. Bookmakers are already setting the odds for this championship bout, with Chimaev as the favorite at 1.5, while Dricus is sitting somewhere around 2.6. Drop your thoughts. Does this seem fair to you? And while everyone is debating whether it'll be Chimaev or du Plessis who comes out on top, let's not forget Belal Muhammad, the welterweight champion. He's absolutely convinced that if he ever steps into the cage with Dricus, he'll destroy him. Belal has been vocal about his ambitions for double gold, saying he's interested in moving up to middleweight, but not just yet, a little later down the road. He was already talking about this when Strickland held the belt, saying that of all possible champ-champ fights, beating Strickland for a 2nd title would be the easiest. But now that it's not Strickland, but Dricus du Plessis holding the belt, Belal's stance hasn't changed. He still sees himself as the future double champ, believing he'll dismantle Dricus. He posted a massive breakdown of exactly how he'd handle du Plessis. He visualizes himself stepping in with a 1-2 combo, throwing an overhand, slipping Dricus' punch, dropping levels, and securing a takedown. Du Plessis tries to get back up, but he's too weak compared to Belal. Belal keeps him down and beats on him until the end of round 1. He opens round 2 with a flying knee, then pulls off a Zabit Magomed-Sharipov-style trip. He toys with Dricus in the fight. Du Plessis, furious, starts swinging wild, but Belal is completely composed. He stuffs the takedowns, leaves Dricus kneeling, exhausted, punishes him with body kicks. By round 3, he takes Dricus back, sneaks his arm under the chin, locks in a choke, and puts du Plessis to sleep, crowning himself the new double champ. Well, dreaming doesn't hurt, I guess, especially considering Belal doesn't even have a finish button. Hope you caught the joke. But let me remind you, Belal used to fantasize about winning on the scorecards, even when he wrote things like this. But now, as you can see in his imagination, he's getting finishes, even stopping Dricus. Alright, that's enough about this card. Just one more thing worth mentioning. There was also a fight featuring an Australian fighter, Jack Jenkins, who got choked out. And apparently it was a bit too much because it turned out he actually fractured the cartilage in his larynx from that choke. So, let's wish him a speedy recovery. Then there's Tatiana Suarez, who injured her knee in the fight against Weili Zhang. She's also promising that she'll always give everything in her fights, won't hold back, will come back stronger and all that. So, we'll definitely see her again. Classic case, really. And just a heads up, there's another UFC event this weekend. No breaks, there's a card every week. This time, Cannonier and Rodriguez are headlining. In the co-main, Kelvin Kattar is facing Youssef Zalal. Also on the card, Shabazian, Sadikov, the Bonfim brothers. Walter Walker, Johnny Walker's brother, is fighting as well. And Jared Gordon has a new opponent. Stepping in on short notice is Masharabjon Ruziboev. So Uzbekistan will be watching too. Let's run through the rest of the news in rapid-fire style. Let's see what we've got here. Michael Page plans to fight 3 more times before the year ends. At least, that's the goal. He wants to step into the cage in April, July, and October. And yes, he's looking to move back down to 77 in case anyone's wondering. So Page is fully locked in. The International Fight Week card is set for June 28th. That'll be UFC 317, of course, taking place in Las Vegas. We've already heard that a lot of fighters are trying to land a spot on that card, since it's always a massive event, with an entire fight week leading up to it. Fan meetups, press conferences, training sessions, the whole package. They always put together a big lineup for these dates. Paddy Pimblett has announced that he wants to fight in Miami at UFC 314, then take another fight in Abu Dhabi in October. And after that, in 2026, he's planning to fight for the belt. Well, at least in his imagination, that's how things play out. Meanwhile, Poirier recently said he's got one final fight left, but it won't be against Paddy Pimblett. He's looking for something bigger than that. Enter Nate Diaz, who's suddenly calling Poirier a coward for not fighting Paddy. According to Nate, Paddy is better than Dustin. Paddy, of course, loved hearing that, thanked Nate for the compliments, and threw a jab at Poirier, reminding everyone that Dustin just fought Benoit Saint-Denis, who was ranked 12th, yet somehow doesn't want to fight him. Paddy is convinced Poirier is ducking him because he knows he'd lose. Well, Paddy is clearly just trying to talk his way into a big fight, but I can see why Poirier isn't interested. Drew Dober has been booked for the Mexican card on March 29th. His opponent will be Manuel Torres, and Roman Kopylov is set to return in May. That news came straight from his manager, Alexander Skorodin, in a recent interview. Jorge Masvidal mentioned that he doesn't want Ilia Topuria to fight Movsar Evloev since he has a lot of respect for both of them. Movsar trains at American Top Team, and Masvidal knows him well. He's fully aware of how strong Movsar's grappling is. He believes Movsar has a solid chance against Ilia, especially since there's no point in striking with Topuria, given how sharp his hands are. Movsar will have to take it to the ground and control the fight, which is something he's very skilled at. Justin Gaethje is training, but of course his training sessions are pretty unusual. Every week, new clips pop up, and there's always something to laugh at. PFL has locked in its schedule for the year. The season kicks off on the 4th of April. The first round of the Grand Prix runs through the entire month, with 4 events happening on the 3rd, 11th, 18th, and the 1st of May. Then, the semifinals take place throughout June, followed by the finals in August. So, the entire season wraps up in less than 6 months. And remember, in this format, if you lose, you're out. There's no second chance. Some of the divisions have already revealed their lineups for the Grand Prix. One thing that stands out in the welterweight division is the absence of last season's champion. Shamil Musayev is skipping the tournament for some reason. But stepping in, we have Andrei Koreshkov, Magomed Umalat, who made it to the finals, Berkamov, Storley, and even Jason Jackson joining in. It's a solid lineup, but we're still waiting for more details on why Musayev isn't competing. The featherweight division lineup is also out if anyone's interested. And for the last update of the day, Beksat Almakan is set to fight Brad Katona on the 10th of May at UFC 315. That's it for now, folks. We're done here.